Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Cooking with JW's Cup of Joe Listening News Hour. Having my cup of Joe, and let's see what's going on. Let's check out one of these hearings. All right.
How many of Epstein's co-conspirators have you indicted? How many perpetrators are you even investigating?
Good morning. Good morning.
You shouldn't. I find it.
How many have you
All right,
indicted?
excuse me. I'm going to answer the question.
Answer my question.
No, I'm going to answer the question the way I want to answer the question.
No, you're going to answer the question the way I asked it.
You can let her filibuster all day long, but not on our watch.
Be clear.
Not on our time. No way.
Be clear.
And I told you about that, Attorney General, before you
You
started.
don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer. Not even a lawyer.
I'm going to teach you the rules again. You're the Attorney General of the United States. We have rules here.
With him.
You're the Attorney General of the United States.
You're
The rules.
obsessed with Donald Trump. You have
No.
Trump derangement syndrome.
That's just one of the many contentious exchanges.
And that's the Attorney General.
Say there was a Atlantic piece a couple weeks ago asking what happened
To
to Pam Bondi. I mean, a lot of people in Florida that worked with her
Yeah.
liked her very much, that respected her. And this Atlantic piece really goes through all of it. And we're going to get to just the humiliation that she allowed herself to be a part of yesterday. Just really one of the saddest, most pitiful, just cringe-inducing performances in Capitol Hill history. Have been around for quite a while, but old friends, Pam Bondi's, and I.
Good morning,
I've known Pam for a
Shawanda.
long time.
Good morning.
As one person said, who said they knew and loved Pam Bondi, said to the reporter, we're all asking what the F happened to Pam. There's another one who said she's tried to forgive her, she's tried to look past it, she's tried, and her quote is, she went cheap for power. Was it worth it, Pam? Was it really worth it? And yesterday was just, the low light of it was when she was being asked. There's so many, but for me, and I think for a lot of observers, the low light was she was asked, are you going to start protecting these women who were raped as young girls? Are you going to start arresting the men, the powerful and rich men who you're protecting right now, who raped these young girls? And she responded by saying, didn't talk about the raped girls, didn't talk about the rich and powerful men who were evading justice because of her and because of this administration. She said, what we really should be talking about, not the raped girls, not the rich and powerful men, but what we should really be talking about is the Dow Industrial.
Wow.
You can't.
Didn't make no
that
sense.
up. That is so offensive, so repulsive that anybody would actually say that. But there it was, that times 20 throughout the day yesterday. And I've got to say, as somebody that has known her for a long time, I just feel sorry for her. And I asked the same question her friends are asking: is it really worth it? What is worth doing that to yourself and your reputation and your country? And this really, of course, comes on the heels of her. And this is one of those Rubicon moments that we have every day. But here's another Rubicon moment. Trying to charge 6 United States senators for exercising their First Amendment rights and simply restating military law. Simply restating what Pete Buttigieg had said before. Simply restating what Pam Bondi had said the year before in a court filing about service people breaking the law. But she lets it move forward without thinking that continues, Willie.
Yeah, and a grand jury rejected that argument a couple of days ago in federal court in Washington. But I mean, you're right. It's a question we have asked and could ask about so many people over the last decade or so. Has it been worth it? Was it worth it to give up everything you said you stood for, everything you did stand for in many cases, to be close to power? And you're right. I mean, the insults, the talking points, the performative outrage that we saw from the Attorney General were all outrageous and ridiculous, but what they mask is the fact that she would not answer any questions about the Epstein files, which raises the question, and again, I don't know why they're doing all of this, raises the question of who she, the Attorney General, is protecting and why she is protecting that person or those people, not answering basic yes or no questions about indictments, facts inside the Epstein files, redactions in the Epstein files. Wouldn't answer them, instead went to her notes and attacked the person asking the question, including, as you pointed out, this is the moment Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, responded to a question from New York Congressman Jerry Nadler, asked her about how many of Epstein's co-conspirators have been indicted. Here's how she responded.
None of them asked Merrick Garland over the last 4 years one word about Jeffrey Epstein. How ironic is that? You know why? Because Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over $50,000. I don't know why you're laughing.
She had a fit.
About the rape of teenage girls, Joe.
Yeah, we're laughing because she's making a fool of herself.
Complete fool of herself.
Like she actually
So
thinks,
brutally obvious.
she actually thinks that everybody's a 5-year-old in that room.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's exposed, making a fool of herself. The question is about young girls who have been raped, not about the S&P 500. The question is about people all around Donald Trump. I could list the names, those in government, those in his family, those around him that are all over the Epstein files. All over the Epstein files. And yet the richest and the most powerful among them, the people, the Epstein class who is running this government, is still being protected by Pam Bondi. Her binders full of information, yeah, nothing was in that. And now they're desperately trying to continue to keep this from the American people. Who is in the Epstein class that they are trying to protect? You got a Commerce Secretary who's been caught lying through his teeth, saying that he stopped seeing Epstein in 2005. He took his family to Rape Island like 7 years later. He lived next door to the guy.
Water's different everywhere you live, and clear doesn't always mean clean. At Hydro-Deep, we make water filters tailored for different zip codes that work smarter to make your water safer. Customized purification.
Yeah, she made a wreck of herself in that hearing. That's a shame. She made a whole wreck of herself. Unbelievable. So, how's everyone doing today? Top of the morning with a cup of Joe. No, not Joe, it's a little bit strong. Hope everyone is fine and dandy.
But nothing happens. Nothing happens. And by the way, this is a Republican issue. This was a MAGA issue.
It was.
This is what all of them, the FBI director, Pam Bondi, everybody was talking about the Epstein files. The Epstein files. When we're in charge, we're going to get rid of, all of the hidden rapists and all of the hidden pedophiles out there who are in powerful positions. Instead, it's a cover up. They keep covering up, and it's not just the Democrats on the committee saying it. Thomas Massie of Kentucky, who, by the way, Thomas Massie of Kentucky is saying the same thing now. The Kash Patel, the Pam Bondi, and all these other MAGA supporters were saying before the election, before they had the power, to actually release the Epstein files. Now that they have that power, it looks like a cover-up. So Massey, of course, co-sponsored the discharge petition for the release of the Epstein files. And this is what the Republican had to say to Pam Bondi yesterday.
Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Webster's name was listed more than 4,000 times about I had.
Yeah, I already told you that.
Can
This is where he's listed as
Can I finish
co-conspirator.
my answer? Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Webster's name.
Reclaiming my
I'm
time.
gonna answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
He was,
Mr.
this is
Chairman,
how this works.
can I have my time?
He was,
Mr. Chairman,
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from.
all right, I'm reclaiming my
Not in
time.
my answer.
So, I'm gonna put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
Is
may I
that
give
another
my answer
question?
on that?
Here's
It's a political
the question.
joke, and I need to give my answer
Yeah,
on that.
we'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to the
Chairman,
next question.
it's my time.
Within 40
Chairman.
minutes, you asked me a question.
You can give
Within
me-
40 minutes, Webster's name was added back
Then
in.
40 minutes of me catching you red-handed.
Red hand, there was one redaction out
Where
of
he's
over
listed as a
4,700. And
Okay.
we invited you
Show
in.
video.
This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to, you're a failed politician.
Good morning, Matthew. It's morning where I am.
And remind the witness of the rules here.
Thanks for stopping by.
None.
So listening news.
The case yesterday. Any traffic.
Support watch time hours.
Is that your position as well?
My position is any victim who comes forward, of course, we would love to hear from them. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Did you ask Merrick Garland that the last 4 years? Did
They
you
always
talk
bringing
about
up the-
Epstein?
I'm reclaiming my time.
The last administration, and they've been in office a whole year, haven't did anything but
You don't have to
BS.
go back to Biden. Let's go back to Obama. Let's go back to George Bush. This cover-up spans decades, and you are responsible for this portion of it.
And
Yeah, the cover-up spans decades.
Basically, the face of it.
She thinks she's now the face of the cover-up for this administration, and she can keep trying to talk over people, but that doesn't obscure the fact that she's part of a huge cover-up
It
right
was a
now.
very helpful display.
There's all these redactions. It took him forever to do it. She wouldn't even let him read. Think about this. She would not even let him read the law. She started into her petty little insults because she did not want a United States congressman to read the law that passed the House of Representatives 427-1. And she said she was ready to hear from the victims. No, the victims stood up. And she refused to turn around and even look at them. Let me say that again. The victims, there were many victims who were there. And Pam Bondi refused to turn around and even look at them. Instead, she comes with these literally 5-year-old insults. If I'm that, what does that make you? Basically, is it a failed lawyer or burned out whatever or Trump derangement? No. Those that have Trump derangement syndrome are those who've basically thrown all of their professional careers overboard because they're so deranged at trying to get into the good graces of Donald Trump that they will literally ignore child rape victims when they're right behind them.
So if we could put that shot up where it's Bondi, two-shot with the victims. I just think it's interesting because here was her moment on the national stage as the Attorney General of the United States, to be a woman who stands up for other women.
She won't turn around.
She decided to turn her back on victims of repeated sexual abuse, some of them at the time of their lives when they were children. That right there is who Pam Bondi is now. And I mean, for Republicans who
Past going to jail, all of them.
who continue to
For
follow
Donald
in
Trump.
these footsteps, it's gonna get harder, as you could see
Evil.
yesterday. As you could see yesterday, it's getting harder to do what you do because it looks terrible. It looks so obvious. It looks so brutally obvious that you are not working for the American people at all.
Are working for these women who, as young girls, were trafficked, were abused, were molested, were passed around.
I just can't believe as a woman
Rich
she
and
would put
powerful.
herself in that position.
And so now we have
Of course she will.
of her turning her back on child rape victims. And she's doing it literally and in her work as the Attorney General.
And these victims even say now they go back and work with the Justice Department with her after that. And
But
nothing.
they don't want work. Let's bring in.
Wow, that is creepy. These people doing all this stuff, all this illegal crap, to stay in the good graces of the cult leader. This is amazing. Amazing. I hope everyone is being, hope everyone is blessed this good morning. It's Cup of Joe. Listening News Hour. This is where I have my cup of Joe, take my meds, and listen and see what else is going on out here. What else?
Work. So last week, Donald Trump spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast. So it's one of many speeches that he's given that are supposed to be about faith. But there's something a little bit off about what Trump actually says in these speeches. Almost like he's the exact opposite of a real Christian. So what I want to do today is just take you through some of the most obvious moral instructions in the Bible. And let's see how well Trump stacks up against what the Bible says. So let's start with the
This
basics,
gonna be
the
a
10
doozy.
Commandments. Here's an easy one. You shall.
Okay, this fool was at the National Prayer Breakfast. And this is the crap he said at a prayer breakfast. Oh my God. He's so stupid and evil.
Not steal. Pretty simple. So, for example, Venezuela has oil. So it would be wrong for us to go to Venezuela and attack their country and take over their oil industry and make them give us 50 million barrels of oil, right? So let's hear what Trump said at the prayer breakfast about that.
In fact, we have 50 million barrels of oil floating right now over to Houston.
That's Venezuela's oil. We didn't pay for it. We just went in and we kidnapped their dictator. And then we told them that we would attack their country again if they didn't let us control their oil. So they gave us 50 million barrels of oil. That's theft. We stole their oil. And Trump, at a prayer breakfast, is bragging about it. Okay, so let's try another obvious commandment. Here's one. You shall not murder. So, for example, if an army officer was convicted by our own military courts of murdering civilians, it would be wrong to let him walk free, right? But that is exactly what Trump did. In fact, he let several convicted or accused murderers in our military walk free. And here he is at the prayer breakfast bragging about it.
They have arrested American soldiers because they taught them how to fight, and they fought really well, and they won every battle. And now they put them in jail because they said they were too tough. I said, so how many are there? 22. And some of these guys were on the edge. They were fairly tough, wouldn't you say, Pete? But you know, it's true. We teach people how to
He
fight.
is
then
so
you put them in
damn
jail
dumb.
because they fought a little bit too hard. And we took care of a lot of business.
Oh, they just fought a little too hard. The Bible says, don't murder people. But Trump says, if you do, and you're wearing our uniform, it's okay with me. Okay, how about this one? You shall not bear false witness. Tell the truth. Don't make things up. So, for example, it would be wrong to make up a story about something Joe Biden said about the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, right? But here's what Trump said at the prayer breakfast about that.
We rebuilt the military. You know, Biden gave a little chunk of it to Afghanistan brilliantly. He left tanks and planes and, you know, little things. I said, why didn't you fly the planes out? He said, well, nobody thought of it.
He could have flown. Yeah, that never happened. Biden never said any such thing to Trump. Trump just made it up. And here's another thing he made up about the 2020 election. Listen to what the audience does when Trump says this about Democrats.
And then they rigged the election.
Did you hear the laughter? This is a religious audience, a Christian audience.
Supposedly.
Trump is lying about the election being rigged. In fact, that is the most thoroughly debunked lie in the world at this point. They know he's lying, and they laugh. So it's not just Trump who's mocking the Bible, it's the audience. Okay, let's try one more commandment. You shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. That means, for example, don't use God's name to promote yourself or your own agenda. But that is exactly what Trump has done in every one of these speeches. For example, here's what he said in September in a speech to the White House Religious Liberty Commission. He's talking here about the fight for the Republican presidential nomination in 2016.
We were fighting it out, and we had actually 18 candidates, including me. And Ben came up to me right after the first debate. He said, you know you're going to win, don't you? He said, no, you're going to win it because God wants you to win it. Yeah.
Again, you heard the applause. This is a religious audience.
Air
That
quotes.
speech was literally at the Museum of the Bible. Trump is telling them, he's telling them that God chose him over 17 other Republicans. He's taking God's name in vain, and that audience is applauding him. Okay, so Trump's not doing too well on the 10 Commandments. So let's see how he does on some other rules from the New Testament. Again, let's pick something easy. The Sermon on the Mount. This is the Gospel of Matthew quoting Jesus. Here's an obvious one. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. How's Trump doing on meekness?
They rigged the second election. I had to win it. I needed it for my own ego. I would have had a bad ego for the rest of my life. No, I really have a big ego, though.
Yeah, not too meek. Okay, but how about this one? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, that's a message from Jesus to be humble and to seek God's grace and forgiveness. So how's Trump doing on that? Well, here he is last July speaking at a luncheon for the White House Faith Office.
I got indicted 5 times, impeached 2 times. Oh, bullshit, right? Oh, terrible stuff. And
Because you're a damn
make
criminal.
perfect phone call.
I'm not hearing a lot of moral humility there. Not a lot of, interest in repenting or being forgiven. What I'm hearing, again, is laughter from people who claim to be religious. Okay, so here's another teaching from the Sermon on the Mount.
Conseguí estos tacones por menos de $2. Me acaban de llegar.
Yeah. Donald Trump is nowhere near religious or motherfucker's a demented fool.
Don't judge, or you too will be judged. So, did Trump humble himself and refrain from judging others at that prayer breakfast?
Of course not.
Here's what he said about the Republican Congressman, Thomas Massie.
No matter what we do, this moron, no matter what it is.
And here's what Trump said about Joe Biden.
I call him Crooked Joe and Sleepy Joe. I find them to be equal, actually. I say to the
Projection.
polls, which is better, Crooked Joe or Sleepy Joe? And
None,
they poll about
but-
even.
And
That's
here's what he
about
said about Jerome Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
And I tried being nice to the guy. It doesn't help. He's like a knucklehead. No, he's a knucklehead. Stupid guy. He really is.
Again, you can hear the laughter. You can hear how truly unchristian these people are.
Yeah.
Jesus had a message specifically for people who behave this way, people who belittle others. He said, don't be a hypocrite. Here's the verse from the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus said, why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? That's exactly what Trump does. He accuses other people of sins that he himself routinely commits. Here he is.
Every
the
day.
protagonist.
Obama was very bad, terrible divider of our country. He
Divider.
He was a divider.
Oh, yeah. Obama was a divider. Not Trump. Obama was a divider. And here's Trump at the Museum of the Bible talking about Biden.
He's a mean guy, actually. Not a smart guy, never was, but he was a mean guy. No, he was a mean guy.
Oh, yeah. Biden was mean. Not Trump. Biden was. I mean, Trump is literally standing there being mean and divisive, right? As he
Mhm.
calls other presidents mean and divisive. And the audience isn't even embarrassed at this obvious hypocrisy.
Well, they
They're
should
enjoying
be.
it. They're laughing along with it. Okay, here's another teaching from Jesus. Love your enemies. But that's not what Trump says, right? Here's what he said about loving your enemies last fall at the memorial service for Charlie Kirk.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
You can see what happened there. The speechwriters, Trump's speechwriters, put the Christian message on the teleprompter. Essentially, don't hate your enemies. And Trump looked at that message and then he turned away from the teleprompter and said, no, I hate my opponents. Jesus says you should empathize with your opponents. You should treat them the way you would want to be treated. Here's the verse. Do to others what you would have them do to you. And here's another verse where he says you should be merciful. And he says you should forgive other people when they sin against you. But Trump says the opposite. He bragged at the prayer breakfast about humiliating his opponents. He said it made him feel great.
Beating these lunatics was incredible. What a great feeling. Winning every swing state, winning the popular vote.
Trump doesn't just love winning. He loves watching other people suffer. Again, these are his own words at the Museum of the Bible about Joe Biden.
And his administration was one of the meanest we've ever had. And that's why they're out of here. And people, they're having a hard time getting jobs. And that's the way it should be.
They can't get jobs, and Trump loves it. Jesus said, don't think that way. Here's one of his most famous teachings from the Sermon on the Mount. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, he says, turn to them the other cheek also. But Trump, again, says the opposite. Here's what he said at the Museum of the Bible.
You know, when you have horrible killings, you have to take horrible actions.
And here's what he said at the prayer breakfast about his bombing of Islamic militants in Nigeria.
When Christians come under attack, they know they're going to be attacked violently and viciously by President Trump. I know it's not a nice thing to say, but that's the way it is.
Now, you might say to yourself, well, he's talking about war, right? Okay, he's advocating violence and he's committing violence, but he's doing it against killers, right? But I want you to hear what Trump said at the Museum of the Bible about violence, not in war, but in your own home.
Things that take place in the home, they call crime. You know, they'll do anything they can to find something. If a man has a little fight with the wife, they say this was a crime, see?
I'm sorry, we just got to pause right there. Jesus literally said, if you get slapped on the cheek, turn the other cheek. But Trump says, basically, if you get slapped by your spouse, you can slap her right back. In fact, you can slap her first. It's just a little fight with the wife. A couple more things. Here's what Jesus says about money. Don't store up treasures on earth, he says. You can't serve both God and money. But Trump makes it pretty clear that he does serve money. And it's not just stealing the oil from Venezuela. Here's Trump at last year's prayer breakfast talking about his energy secretary.
He's going to have more liquid gold coming out of the ground than anybody's ever seen before. We're going to drive the price down and everything else is going to follow.
And then here's what Trump said a few seconds later about his interior secretary.
Because he made his money, made a lot of money, which I like. I like people that make money because that means they can help us.
This is a prayer breakfast, but Trump cannot stop talking about money and how much he loves rich people. In fact, here's Trump 3 months after that prayer breakfast at a White House ceremony that was supposed to honor the National Day of Prayer. What has Trump decided to bring up instead? Tax cuts.
Doesn't pass, your taxes are going to go up 68%. So think of it, 68, and this is a religious ceremony to me, but that's part of the religion. Because if your taxes go up 68%, you might give up your religion.
If your taxes go up,
Wow.
give up your faith. Look, this is clearly a guy.
And they
who has
will, they have
no
already.
idea what faith actually means. Okay, one more topic. Here's what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount about showing off your piety. He says, don't act righteous or religious in front of other people. It's not for show. Real faith is what you do when nobody's looking. But to Trump, everything is about showing off. Here's what he said last week at the prayer breakfast.
You know, I've done more for religion than any other president. When Paula was saying that, it was so nice, I was proud of it. And I said, that's true. I told the people backstage.
That's Trump in a nutshell. I've done more for religion than any other president. Look, to Trump, God isn't real. He's just a prop in a show that's all about Trump. And religion is just another thing Trump can claim to be better than any other president. And all that crap in the Bible about love and mercy and humility and repentance, it's all just a bunch of words that Trump can read from a teleprompter without believing or living any of it. See you next time.
Yeah. The Antichrist. The cultist Antichrist. Jesus. It's unbelievable. But, yeah, it's been happening day in and day out. Day in and day out. That's something, y'all. Okay, with the GOP. Oh. Okay, let's see. No, we ain't doing that one. Oh, 9-year-old victims. This is the morning news. Morning news, y'all. It's time. It's med time. Gotta take the meds, y'all.
We have another Trump retreat, and I mean a complete retreat by Donald Trump. Tonight, there is not a single member of the National Guard illegally deployed by Donald Trump on the streets of America. Not one. Under the headline, National Guard troops were quietly withdrawn from some U.S. cities, the Washington Post reports. The Trump administration has withdrawn all federalized National Guard troops from U.S. cities after its repeated attempts to surge forces into Democratic-run states encountered judicial roadblocks. They're all gone. The Trump retreat of National Guard troops is complete. The Constitution won and Donald Trump lost. And now Donald Trump is losing to Joe Biden in 3 polls that say Joe Biden did a better job as president than Donald Trump. And one of those polls includes the Rasmussen poll, which is always considered to be tilted in favor of Republicans. Rasmussen is Donald Trump's favorite poll. And now the Rasmussen pollster says, quote, if an election were held today between Trump and Biden, Biden would win. The First Amendment of the Constitution won when the Vice President of the United Auto Workers reported in a speech in Washington this week that the auto worker at the Ford plant who called Donald Trump a pedophile protector is happily back at his job and hasn't been disciplined in any way. TJ Sabula, the 40-year-old auto worker, says he has no regrets for calling Donald Trump a pedophile protector. The Detroit News reports, quote, Trump responded by flashing his middle finger and twice mouthing F you at Sabula. The president also mouthed the popular catchphrase from his days on reality television, you're fired. The United Auto Workers Vice President, Laura Dickerson, said in her speech on Monday, quote, in that moment, we saw what the president really thinks about working people. As UAW members, we speak truth to power. We don't just project rights, we exercise them. And the label pedophile protector took on new meaning yesterday for Donald Trump when someone he protected with a pardon was found guilty of multiple child sexual abuse charges. Andrew Paul Johnson is seen here on January 6th when he participated in the attack on the Capitol to try to overturn the presidential election for Donald Trump. He pleaded guilty to federal charges for his participation in the attack on the Capitol. And on his first day in office, Donald Trump pardoned Andrew Paul Johnson, who is now facing the possibility of life in prison in Florida for molesting an 11-year-old boy.
Wow.
Johnson used Donald Trump's pardon to try to keep the boy silent, saying that Donald Trump was going to give him $10 million. Donald Trump has publicly discussed.
These deplorable people. Well, he pardoned all those deplorables that attacked the Capitol. He pardoned all of them, and most of them have went back to jail, committed other crimes since after their pardons. And now this creep, oh man, they molested an 11-year-old boy at that, a boy.
Compensating the people who committed crimes for him on January 6th. And Andrew Paul Johnson used that, saying that he would put the 11-year-old boy in his will after Donald Trump gave him $10 million. So there's a pedophile who Donald Trump protected with a pardon, a pedophile who has proudly called himself an American terrorist, and he really is. And he is a proud recipient of a Donald Trump pardon. Today, it was Attorney General Pamela Bondi's turn to play her role in the pedophile protector scheme that Donald Trump's Justice Department has been running by violating the law that requires the release to Congress of all of the Epstein files with redactions only for any identifying information about the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's international sex trafficking and rape conspiracy. We've had exactly 2 attorneys general in the history of the United States convicted of crimes, both of them Republican attorneys general, both of them in service to the criminal Republican President Richard Nixon. Neither one of those attorneys general ever testified to Congress while blatantly and publicly violating the law, which is what Pamela Bondi did today. The law required the Attorney General to hand over all of the Epstein files 54 days ago, and she still has not done that. And so she is breaking the law every day and was breaking the law every minute in that hearing room today.
Mm-hmm.
We've never seen an Attorney General willing to do that publicly.
Yeah. Those maniacs they just gone wild. You got the ICE Gestapo. Oh, you got nothing but criminals and administration. Oh God, the stealing, it's just so embarrassing. Dear world leaders are laughing at us because of that stupid ass orange bastard and his criminal administration. It's all going to hell. It's really a shame.
And because her position is completely indefensible, she had her staff provide her with a 3-ring binder with idiotic attacks that she could try to launch on every Democratic member of the House Judiciary Committee today instead of answering any of their questions. We've never seen this before the Trump cabinet began doing this just this year. This is not what Donald Trump's cabinet did in congressional testimony during the first Trump presidency. This is brand new. And this is the end of the congressional hearing as we knew it, involving cabinet members. What we saw today was not a hearing. It was not anything that the most honorable members of Congress in our history would recognize. It was Pamela Bondi, with the help of the worst writers in Washington, trying to turn a hearing into a roast. She did the lamest possible impression of Comedy Central roastmaster in chief Jeff Ross with the stupidest material ever provided to an Attorney General of the United States to speak in public. And she was stupid enough to do it. She was literally laughed at when refusing to answer a question about the Epstein files. She tried to change the subject to the stock market, and she said the Dow is over $5,000. Those were her words. She apparently doesn't know what stock market numbers mean. And when people laughed at her for saying the Dow Jones Industrial Average is over $50,000, she double underlined her ignorance by saying, I don't know why you're laughing.
Because she read it wrong.
Swalwell presented clear and convincing proof beyond
She read the wrong thing in her little book.
Director,
Her little book of horrors.
Lied under oath and did it on video.
Madam Attorney General, you acknowledged earlier to Mr. Johnson that President Trump was mentioned in the release countless times, you said, in the Epstein files. I just want to play a video, though, for you that I think speaks to the frustration that many of these victims have. At times, Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name we have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it
We have
at least be 1,000
released
times?
every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
You can
so
characterize the numbers however you want it.
claim me my time, Director.
That's cross-eyed
It
catch
sounds
the
like if you
tail.
don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
It's not.
would be-
It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No,
Is it at least 100 times?
no.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number.
We now
Dumbass.
know that the number is over 1 million times. Yes,
Damn.
1 million. Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files over 1 million times, according to Congressman Jamie Raskin, who has seen the so-called unredacted version of the files. And Kashyap Patel is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of lying under oath about that. And during every presidency in the history of the FBI, except the Trump presidency, the FBI director would be forced to immediately resign once he was proved to have lied under oath, and he would be prosecuted. The Trump administration is now a governmental crime spree from top to bottom, with the masked agents Donald Trump has sent to Minneapolis literally murdering people, which we have all seen on video. And the Attorney General feigned outrage today when she was accused by Congressman Ted Lieu of lying under oath. Congressman Lieu said, "I believe you just lied under oath." And Pamela Bondi said, "Don't you ever accuse me of a crime." Everyone in America has a First Amendment right to accuse Pamela Bondi of crimes. Everyone in America has a First Amendment right in their factories or anywhere else to call Pamela Bondi a pedophile protector. Everyone in America has every right to believe Pamela Bondi is doing everything she can to protect any and all possible pedophiles whose names appear in the Epstein files. Pamela Bondi refused to answer questions about why the names of men listed as co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein's in the Epstein files were redacted. Republican Thomas Massie asked her how that happened, and she simply refused to answer. She insulted the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein who were in the hearing room today by refusing to even look at them when repeatedly asked to do so by Democratic members of the committee. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal asked Pamela Bondi, a human being, to apologize to the survivors for having failed to redact their personal information, including their names, while she made sure that the co-conspirators' names were redacted. And that is when we saw that a human being didn't show up to testify to that hearing today, just a Trumpian robot whose handling of the Epstein files has earned her the suspicion of being a pedophile protector, and her refusal to acknowledge the survivors in the room today in any way established her Trumpian level of heartless, soulless depravity.
Yep, they're deprived, heartless, soulless criminals. Well, that's all I have, folks. Thank you for coming in. Please leave a like as you leave. And, I'll see y'all later. I'm going to start prepping for my dinner. And I hope you all have a blessed day. I'll see you guys later on. I will be uploading my dinner. So stop by. Thank you. Bye-bye.